Take a standard 100-watt light bulb and place it in the center of a room. It illuminates the walls, the floor, the ceiling. Everything within its reach is bathed in soft, diffused light. But here is the secret that most men never grasp. That same bulb, despite its glow, cannot cut through a single sheet of paper. Now take those exact same 100 watts and concentrate them into a microscopic beam. The transformation is immediate and total. What was once harmless becomes a laser, a tool of surgical precision that can slice through steel plates as if they were warm butter. Your mind operates on this identical principle, and this is the truth that separates the powerful from the powerless. Most men are light bulbs, scattering their mental energy in every direction, lighting up nothing of significance, cutting through nothing of substance. Theron Q Dumont teaches you to become the laser, to compress your consciousness into a penetrating force that obliterates obstacles instead of merely illuminating them. Behind the name Theron Q Dumont stands one of the most formidable intellects of the mental science movement, William Walker Atkinson, a man who understood that the era's greatest tragedy was not a lack of intelligence, but a catastrophic failure of concentration. He wrote under many pseudonyms, each one a surgical instrument designed to cut into a different facet of human potential, and through the Dumont persona, he delivered his most practical and devastating insight. That intelligence without concentration is nothing more than potential energy that never converts to kinetic force. Walk through any city, any office, any university, and you will find them everywhere. Brilliant failures, men and women with sharp minds and impressive credentials who cannot hold their mental beam on a single point long enough to burn through the obstacles that stand between them and their goals. They are intellectual light bulbs, impressive in their glow, but utterly powerless in their impact. Dumont recognized this epidemic of diffusion and set out to cure it with a precision that borders on the military. He understood that the world does not reward those who know much. It rewards those who can focus everything they know into a single, unrelenting point of pressure. The forgotten skill is not learning. It is the ability to hold the mind perfectly still while it does its cutting work. And this is the art that Dumont resurrected from the ancient mystery schools and translated into a method that any man can master if he possesses the discipline to drill. In this video, you are not going to receive theory or philosophy. You are going to engage the drill, a systematic program of mental exercises that Theron Q Dumont designed specifically to condense your thought power from a weak, scattered beam into a piercing point of concentrated force. We are going to stop bouncing off our problems like diffused light reflecting harmlessly off a mirror, and we are going to start drilling through them with the focused intensity of industrial machinery. Every obstacle you face, whether it is a business challenge, a personal limitation, or a seemingly impossible goal, is simply matter of a certain density, and density is no match for sustained, concentrated pressure applied to a single point. This is not motivational rhetoric, this is mechanical truth. The question is not whether you have enough intelligence, or enough resources, or enough luck. The question is whether you have enough concentration to keep the drill bit spinning in the exact same spot until it breaks through to the other side. By the end of this transmission, you will possess the specific techniques that transform a wandering mind into a weapon, and you will understand why the men who master this single skill end up controlling resources, outcomes, and destinies, while others of equal or greater intelligence remain trapped in mediocrity, wondering why their brilliance never translates into results. Concentration is not a mystical gift bestowed upon the fortunate few by the gods of fortune or genetics. It is a muscle, and like every muscle in the human body, it responds to the iron law of progressive resistance. Theron Q Dumont's revolutionary insight begins here, with the understanding that every single time you allow your mind to wander from the object of your focus, you are not simply being distracted, you are actively training yourself to be weak, just as surely as a man who drops the barbell mid-rep is training his muscles to quit under pressure. The mind does not distinguish between conscious and unconscious training. It simply records patterns and then automates them. When you check your phone in the middle of deep work, when you shift your attention to a passing thought while reading an important document, when you allow your focus to fragment across multiple tasks simultaneously, You are performing repetitions, but you are performing repetitions of weakness, of diffusion, of powerlessness. The tragic irony is that most men spend their entire lives strengthening the exact mental patterns that guarantee their failure, all while wondering why they cannot achieve the results that seem to come so easily to others. Dumont understood that the mind, like the body, becomes what it practices, and if it practices distraction 10,000 times, it will become a master of distraction, which is to say, a master of nothing. But here is the liberation contained within this mechanical truth. If concentration is a muscle, then it can be trained, systematically and predictably, through deliberate exercise. Every time you notice your mind wandering and consciously bring it back to your chosen point of focus, you are performing a repetition, a genuine strengthening action that builds the neural architecture of sustained attention. This is not metaphor. This is neuroscience translated into practice. The brain physically rewires itself based on repeated patterns of activation. And when you practice the act of returning your attention to a single object, you are literally constructing new neural pathways that make future acts of concentration easier and more automatic. Consider the implications. The laser focus that you witness in masters of any field is not evidence of their innate superiority. It is evidence of their training history. They have simply performed more concentration repetitions than you have, and because they have, their mental beam has become correspondingly sharper. The beginner struggles to maintain focus for even 5 minutes without his mind skittering away like a frightened animal. But this is not a permanent condition. It is simply an accurate measurement of his current level of development, and like all measurements, it can be changed through systematic application of effort. Dumont's method strips away all the mystical nonsense that surrounds the subject of concentration and replaces it with a training program as straightforward as any found in a gymnasium. You begin where you are, not where you wish to be. If you can hold your focus for only 2 minutes before it fractures, then 2 minutes becomes your starting weight, and you work from there. You do not berate yourself for being weak any more than a man who can bench press 100 pounds berates himself for not being able to lift 300. You simply acknowledge your current capacity and you begin the process of expanding it. This is the first great truth that must penetrate your consciousness. Your current inability to concentrate is not a character flaw or a permanent limitation. It is simply a measurement of an untrained capacity, and untrained capacities respond to training. Every master was once a beginner, and every laser was once scattered light. The difference is not talent. The difference is thousands of repetitions performed with conscious intention, each one building upon the last, each one making the next slightly easier, until what once required agonizing effort becomes as natural and automatic as breathing. The progression follows a predictable arc that Dumont mapped with scientific precision. In the beginning, the mind rebels against the harness of concentration, like a wild horse feeling the bit for the first time. It bucks, it twists, it does everything in its power to break free and return to its accustomed state of wandering freedom. This rebellion is not a sign that the method is failing, it is a sign that the method is working, that you are encountering the resistance that generates growth. The untrained mind is addicted to stimulation, to novelty, to the dopamine hits that come from constantly shifting attention, and when you force it to remain fixed on a single point, you are essentially forcing an addict into withdrawal. There will be discomfort, there will be restlessness, there will be 1,000 seemingly urgent thoughts that arise precisely because you have commanded your mind to ignore them. This is the training. This is the forge. And every time you resist the urge to follow those thoughts, every time you gently but firmly return your attention to your chosen focus point, you are hammering your mind into a new shape, a stronger shape, a shape capable of cutting through obstacles that would stop weaker men cold. As the repetitions accumulate, something remarkable begins to happen. The resistance diminishes, the wild thrashing of the untrained mind begins to settle, and periods of sustained focus that once seemed impossible start to feel natural. What required white-knuckled effort in week 1 becomes manageable in week 4 and almost effortless in week 12. This is not magic, this is adaptation. The same biological process that allows a man to progress from struggling with a light weight to hoisting massive loads with apparent ease. Your brain is rewiring itself, creating more efficient pathways for sustained attention, pruning away the neural connections that support distraction, and strengthening the networks that support focus. You are literally becoming a different person at the neurological level, and this transformed neurology produces transformed results in the external world. The projects that once took you months because your scattered attention could only produce an hour of genuine work per day now take you weeks because your concentrated mind can produce 4 or 5 hours of laser-focused effort. The problems that once seemed unsolvable, because you could never hold them in your consciousness long enough to see the solution, now yield their secrets, because you can maintain steady pressure on them until they crack open. This is why Dumont's system represents such a radical departure from conventional approaches to personal development, which focus almost entirely on acquiring more information, more techniques, more strategies. He understood that information is useless in the hands of a diffused mind, that techniques fail when wielded by scattered attention, that strategies collapse when implemented by men who cannot maintain focus long enough to see them through to completion. The bottleneck is never knowledge. The bottleneck is always concentration, the ability to bring all of your power to bear on a single point without leaking energy into a dozen irrelevant directions. Give a man with laser focus a mediocre strategy, and he will produce superior results, because he will execute that strategy with relentless, undivided attention until it yields. Give a man with scattered attention the most brilliant strategy ever devised, and he will produce mediocre results, because he will never focus on it long enough to discover its power. This is the great leveler that Dumont identified. Concentration multiplies the value of everything else you possess, while lack of concentration divides it. The mathematics of this principle are brutal and unavoidable. If you have 10 units of intelligence and 10 units of concentration, you have 100 units of effective force. If you have 20 units of intelligence, but only 2 units of concentration, you have only 40 units of effective force, less than half the power of the man with average intelligence and superior focus. This is why the world is full of brilliant failures, and why men of seemingly average intellectual gifts so often rise to positions of extraordinary power and influence. They are not smarter, they are more concentrated, and concentration acts as a multiplier on every other attribute you possess. Your creativity becomes more powerful when concentrated. Your energy becomes more effective when concentrated. Your time becomes more productive when concentrated. Even your luck seems to improve because a concentrated mind notices opportunities that a scattered mind overlooks and acts on them with a decisiveness that a diffused consciousness cannot muster. You do not need to become smarter or more talented or more privileged. You need to become more focused, and everything else you have will suddenly become more valuable. Dumont drives this point home with an observation that should shake every ambitious person to their core. The difference between the man who achieves his goals and the man who does not is rarely a difference in desire, intelligence, or even work ethic. It is a difference in the ability to maintain concentrated attention on the desired outcome for an extended period of time. The failures wanted success just as badly as the victors did. They often worked just as many hours. They frequently possessed equal or superior intelligence, but they could not hold the beam steady. Their attention wandered. They started projects with enthusiasm and abandoned them when the initial excitement faded. They jumped from strategy to strategy, from method to method, from goal to goal, always searching for the magic bullet that would eliminate the need for sustained focus. And in their searching, they guaranteed their failure, because there is no substitute for concentration, no shortcut around it, no hack that eliminates the requirement for sustained mental pressure applied to a single point. The laser cuts through steel, not because it is hotter than other light sources. The surface of the sun is far hotter, but because all of its energy is focused on a single microscopic point, and that focus gives it a power that diffused energy can never possess. This is the muscle that you have been neglecting your entire life, and this neglect explains far more about your current results than any other single factor. You have been trying to succeed with a weak concentration muscle and wondering why men with seemingly no advantages, except the ability to focus consistently, outperform you in every arena. Now you understand why. They are not lucky. They are focused. They are not more talented. They are more concentrated. They are not working from some secret playbook that you do not possess. They are simply applying the playbook they have with sustained attention while you are applying yours with scattered effort. The good news is that this muscle can be trained, starting today, starting now. And every repetition you perform brings you closer to the laser focus that obliterates obstacles. The question is not whether you can develop this capacity. You can, because it is a trainable skill, not an innate gift. The question is whether you will commit to the daily drilling required to transform your current lightbulb consciousness into a cutting beam. Consider what becomes possible when you possess this capacity. Every book you read yields more value because you extract every insight instead of skimming the surface. Every conversation becomes an opportunity for deeper understanding because you are fully present instead of half distracted. Every problem you encounter becomes solvable because you can hold it in your consciousness long enough to see all of its dimensions and discover the hidden leverage points that scattered attention misses. Every goal becomes achievable because you can maintain steady pressure on it day after day, week after week, month after month, until the accumulated force of your focused attention breaks through whatever barriers stand in your way. This is not theoretical. This is mechanical, as predictable as physics, as reliable as mathematics. Focused pressure applied to a single point for a sufficient duration will break through any obstacle of any density, and the man who masters this principle masters the external world. Because the external world is simply matter, and matter always yields to sustained, concentrated force. This is the secret that Dumont excavated from the wisdom traditions and translated into practical exercises, and this is the power that awaits you on the other side of the drill. The training begins with awareness, with the simple act of noticing how frequently your mind wanders from the task at hand, and this noticing alone will shock you into recognition of how weak your concentration muscle currently is. You think you are focused when you work, but if you actually track your attention for an hour, you will discover that your mind visits your chosen focus point only intermittently, spending most of its time wandering through memories, fantasies, worries, and random associations. This is not a moral failing. This is simply the natural state of an untrained mind, and recognizing it is the first step toward transforming it. You cannot improve what you do not measure, and you cannot strengthen a muscle whose weakness you do not acknowledge. So the first exercise is brutal honesty. Watch your mind for 1 hour and count every time it wanders. Do not judge yourself. Do not try to stop the wandering. Simply observe and count. The number you arrive at will be your baseline, your starting weight, and from this baseline, you will build the laser focus that cuts through every obstacle that has ever stopped you. The drill begins now. When you concentrate your mind on an object, a problem, or a goal, you are not merely directing your attention toward it. You are fundamentally altering your relationship with it, piercing through the superficial layers of appearance to make contact with its essential nature. Theron Q. Dumont understood that the concentrated mind does not simply see things more clearly. It sees things more deeply, penetrating to dimensions that remain forever invisible to scattered consciousness. This is not poetic exaggeration. This is precise description of a mechanical process that occurs when sustained attention creates a resonance between consciousness and object. Most men spend their entire lives bouncing off the surfaces of things, seeing only the obvious, the apparent, the surface-level features that reveal nothing of value. They look at a business problem and see only the presenting symptoms. They examine their own limitations and see only the surface behaviors. They study an opportunity and see only the immediate obstacles. This surface-level perception keeps them trapped in mediocrity, because all real power, all genuine leverage, all transformative solutions exist beneath the surface, in the core structure of things, and you cannot access that core without the piercing quality that only concentrated attention provides. The physics of this process are precise and verifiable. When your mind touches an object lightly, glancing at it briefly before moving on to the next stimulus, The interaction is superficial. You see what anyone would see with casual observation, gathering no insight that was not already obvious to any casual observer. But when you hold your attention steadily on that object, refusing to let your focus waver or drift, something remarkable begins to happen. Your consciousness begins to resonate with the object of your attention, much like a tuning fork begins to vibrate when exposed to sound waves of the matching frequency. This resonance allows information to flow from the object into your consciousness, revealing layers of structure and meaning that were always present but remained inaccessible to quick glancing attention. This is why the master in any field seems to see things that others miss. He has spent thousands of hours in concentrated study of his domain, and this sustained focus has allowed his consciousness to penetrate to depths that casual observers never reach. He is not smarter in the conventional sense. He is simply capable of penetrating deeper through the sheer force of sustained concentration. Dumont goes further, venturing into territory that modern science is only now beginning to validate through quantum mechanics and consciousness research. He suggests that a concentrated mind does not merely perceive reality more clearly, it actually interacts with reality at a fundamental level, that consciousness focused to a sufficient intensity begins to affect the very structure of the thing observed. This is not mysticism. This is increasingly supported by experimental evidence, showing that the act of focused observation affects quantum systems, that intention measurably influences random number generators, that sustained mental attention produces detectable effects in physical systems. The concentrated mind vibrates at a higher frequency, a more coherent frequency, and this coherence allows it to interact with and influence the lower, more chaotic frequencies of obstacles, problems, and limitations. When you focus your mind with laser intensity on an obstacle, you are not just thinking about it. You are literally bombarding it with coherent mental energy, and this energy disrupts the structure of the obstacle, weakening its integrity, creating cracks through which solutions can emerge. Think of it this way. Every problem, every obstacle, every limitation exists at a certain frequency of vibration. Poverty vibrates at a low, dense frequency. Confusion vibrates at a scattered, incoherent frequency. Fear vibrates at a rapid but weak frequency. These low-frequency states persist because they are not being challenged by anything stronger, anything more coherent, anything capable of disrupting their pattern. But when you bring a highly concentrated mind, which is to say, a high-frequency, coherent consciousness, into sustained contact with these low-frequency obstacles, the higher frequency begins to entrain and eventually overcome the lower. This is not metaphor, this is resonance, the same principle that allows a soprano to shatter a wine glass by hitting the precise frequency that matches the glass's natural vibration. Your concentrated mind, held steady on a problem, begins to shatter the problem's coherence, disrupting its structure, creating the openings through which solutions emerge. This is why sustained focus on a seemingly impossible problem so often leads to breakthrough insights. You are not just thinking harder, you are applying a force that literally disintegrates the obstacle at the vibrational level. The practical implications of this principle are staggering. It means that your current limitations are not solid, permanent facts about reality. They are patterns of energy vibrating at a particular frequency, and those patterns can be disrupted and reorganized by the application of concentrated mental force. The reason you have not solved certain problems is not because those problems are unsolvable. It is because you have never held your focused attention on them long enough for the piercing quality to develop, for the resonance to build, for the higher frequency of your concentrated consciousness to begin disrupting the lower frequency of the obstacle. You have glanced at the problem, felt overwhelmed, and looked away. And in looking away, you ensured that the problem remained intact. The scattered mind bounces off obstacles like rubber balls bouncing off steel walls. Lots of activity, lots of energy expended, zero penetration. The concentrated mind drills through obstacles like diamond-tipped machinery through bedrock. Steady pressure, sustained application, inevitable breakthrough. This is precisely why the same problem that tormented you for months or years suddenly yields its solution after even a few sessions of truly concentrated attention. You did not become smarter overnight. You did not acquire new information that was previously unavailable. What changed was the quality and duration of your focus. You finally held your mental beam steady on the problem long enough for the piercing to occur, for the surface layer to be cut through, for the core of the matter to be exposed. And once you see the core, the solution becomes obvious, often ridiculously so, and you wonder how you could have missed it for so long. You missed it because you were never looking at it. You were looking near it, around it, past it, but never directly into it with sustained, unwavering attention. The concentrated mind cuts through the illusion that problems are solid and impenetrable. It reveals them for what they truly are, temporary configurations of energy that dissolve when exposed to sustained high-frequency attention. Dumont emphasizes that this piercing quality is not something you can fake or simulate. It requires genuine concentration, the real thing, not the scattered approximation of focus that most people mistake for actual mental discipline. You cannot pierce through an obstacle by thinking about it intermittently between checking social media. You cannot access the core of a problem by giving it 5 minutes of distracted attention, while your mind simultaneously worries about tomorrow and regrets yesterday. The piercing requires presence, totality, the full force of your consciousness brought to bear on a single point without division or diffusion. This is why the drill that Dumont prescribes is so rigorous. He is not trying to teach you to concentrate a little better. He is trying to forge your mind into a tool capable of cutting through steel, and that level of power requires a level of training that most men are unwilling to undertake. They want the results without the discipline, the penetration without the sustained pressure, and they wonder why their problems remain unsolved, while men of supposedly no greater intelligence seem to solve similar problems with ease. The concentrated mind also develops what Dumont calls penetrating intuition, the ability to see solutions that are not available through logical analysis alone. When you hold your attention perfectly steady on a problem or goal, your subconscious mind, which operates at speeds and dimensions far beyond the conscious intellect, begins to work on the problem in ways that the conscious mind cannot track or understand. It makes connections across vast databases of experience, synthesizes patterns from seemingly unrelated domains, and when the solution crystallizes, it arrives in consciousness as a sudden insight, a flash of knowing that seems to come from nowhere but is actually the fruit of sustained subconscious processing, made possible by concentrated conscious attention. This is why creative breakthroughs so often occur during or immediately after periods of intense focus. The conscious concentration creates the conditions that allow the subconscious to perform its magic, and the result is solutions of a quality and originality that scattered attention could never produce. You are not just thinking better when you concentrate, you are unlocking dimensions of intelligence that remain dormant in the unfocused mind. Every master knows this secret, even if he cannot articulate it in these terms. The chess grandmaster does not calculate more variations than his weaker opponent. He sees deeper into the positions he does calculate, his concentrated attention revealing implications and subtleties that escape the notice of scattered players. The successful entrepreneur does not necessarily work longer hours than his failing competitors. He penetrates to the core of problems more quickly, his laser focus revealing leverage points that diffused attention overlooks. The artist does not simply practice more than the amateur. He practices with total absorption, his concentrated consciousness making contact with dimensions of his craft that remain forever inaccessible to minds that skim the surface. In every domain of human achievement, the critical difference is not talent or effort or resources. It is the piercing quality that concentrated attention provides, the ability to drill through surface appearances to make contact with the essential core where all real power resides. This is the laser that cuts through steel, and this is the capacity that the drill will develop in you if you possess the discipline to execute it. The connection between Theron Q Dumont's concentration method and Wallace D. Wattle's philosophy of present-moment action is not coincidental. It is essential, mechanical, two gears that must mesh perfectly for the engine of achievement to function. Wattles, in his systematic dissection of wealth creation, identifies a principle that most readers gloss over in their rush to reach the so-called secrets. You must act efficiently in the present moment, bringing your full power to bear on the task immediately before you, because the present moment is the only moment in which creative power can actually operate. The past is gone, inaccessible to your will, except through the stories you tell about it. The future is not yet here, existing only as probability clouds in your imagination. The present is the only point at which your consciousness makes contact with material reality, the only moment in which your intentions can actually move matter, and therefore the present is the only moment that matters for anyone who seeks to create tangible results in the physical world. This is not philosophical musing. This is mechanical fact, as solid as engineering principles, and Wattles builds his entire system on this foundation. But here is where most people fail, where the Wattles philosophy collapses in practical application despite being theoretically sound. They cannot keep their minds in the present moment for more than a few seconds at a time. Their consciousness is constantly leaking into the past through regret, resentment, and rumination, or escaping into the future through anxiety, fantasy, and speculation. They sit at their desk, physically present, but mentally they are everywhere except the present moment. Replaying yesterday's conversation, imagining tomorrow's challenges, worrying about next month's bills, fantasizing about next year's success. And because their consciousness is not actually present in the only moment where power exists, their actions are weak, unfocused, inefficient. They go through the motions without the force, performing tasks without the concentration that would make those tasks productive, and at the end of the day they are exhausted but have produced nothing of value because effort without concentration is motion without progress, activity without achievement. This is why reading Wattles produces inspiration but rarely produces results. The philosophy is sound, but the reader lacks the tool required to implement it, and that tool is the laser focus that Dumont provides. Dumont understood that concentration is the anchor that holds consciousness in the present moment, the mental discipline that prevents your attention from drifting into past or future and dissipating your power across time dimensions where you have no leverage. When you practice the drill, when you train your mind to hold steady on a single object in the present moment without wandering, you are not just building focus in some abstract sense, you are quite literally installing the operating system that allows the Wattles philosophy to function in your life. Every time you notice your mind drifting into past or future and bring it back to present moment awareness, you are performing the exact exercise that makes efficient action possible. This is the missing link that explains why some people read The Science of Getting Rich and transform their financial reality, while others read the same book and experience no change whatsoever. The difference is not in their understanding of Wattles, it is in their capacity for concentration, their ability to lock their consciousness into the present moment and keep it there while they perform the efficient action that Wattles prescribes. Without concentration, the Wattles method is just theory. With concentration, it becomes a functioning technology that produces predictable results. Consider the mathematics of present moment power. If you have 100 units of available energy and your attention is divided equally between past, present, and future, you are applying only 33 units of force to your present action. Your colleague, possessing the same 100 units but with the concentration to keep 80 or 90 units focused in the present moment, will produce results that are 2 to 3 times superior to yours despite having identical raw resources. This is not small advantage. This is overwhelming advantage, compounding advantage, the kind of advantage that creates the illusion of genius or luck, when in reality it is simply the mechanical outcome of concentrated versus diffused energy application. Over time, the gap widens exponentially, because the man who applies 90 units of force to present action accomplishes more, which builds momentum, which increases his resources, which allows him to apply even more concentrated force, creating a flywheel effect that propels him into entirely different leagues of achievement, while his distracted competitor remains stuck, wondering why effort alone does not produce proportional results. Wattles gives you the blueprint for efficient action. Do the thing in the best possible way in the present moment, without splitting your attention across multiple tasks or time periods. But blueprints are useless without the tools to execute them, and Dumont provides the tool. systematic concentration training that gives you the capacity to actually keep your mind where Wattles instructs it to be. This is the power of synthesis, taking the philosophical wisdom from one master and the practical methodology from another, recognizing that they are not competing systems but complementary components of a complete technology. Wattles tells you what to do. Dumont tells you how to develop the mental capacity to do it. Together, they form an unbreakable chain. Concentrate your mind in the present moment. Apply all your force to efficient action right now, and let the accumulated results compound into the success that scattered effort could never achieve. This is not motivational rhetoric. This is engineering as precise as any blueprint for building a bridge, and it works with the same reliability when you possess both the plan and the tools to execute it. The practical application is immediate and testable. The next time you sit down to work, before you begin, take 60 seconds to gather your consciousness into the present moment using Dumont's basic technique. Focus on your breath. Count 10 breaths without allowing your mind to wander. And only when you have achieved that level of present moment awareness should you begin your task. You will immediately notice the difference. Your work will feel more effortless because you are applying undivided force. Your results will be higher quality because you are bringing your full intelligence to bear, and you will complete tasks in significantly less time because you are not constantly stopping to retrieve your wandering attention. This is the Wattles philosophy made functional through the Dumont methodology, and the results speak for themselves. The man who reads both masters and integrates both systems possesses an advantage so overwhelming that he appears to be operating with supernatural power, when in reality he is simply operating with natural power that has been concentrated instead of diffused. This is the bridge between philosophy and practice, between wisdom and results, between knowing and doing. Most people spend their entire lives searching for more advanced techniques, more sophisticated strategies, more complex systems, never realizing that the fundamental problem is not in what they know, but in their inability to focus what they know. They read book after book, attend seminar after seminar, accumulate theory upon theory, and remain fundamentally unchanged because they lack the concentration required to implement anything they learn with sufficient sustained attention to produce results. They are like a man who acquires increasingly powerful tools but never learns to hold them steady while he works. It does not matter how sharp your blade is if you cannot keep it in position long enough to cut. This is why the ancient mystery schools, before teaching students any advanced knowledge, first taught them concentration, because without it, advanced knowledge is worse than useless, creating the illusion of capability while delivering nothing but frustration. Dumont resurrects this ancient wisdom and translates it into practical exercises that any modern person can perform, providing the foundation upon which all other development must be built. The synthesis becomes even more powerful when you recognize that Wattles' instruction to act in the certain way requires the piercing quality that Dumont develops. To act in the certain way means to see the right action, the optimal action, the action that will produce maximum results with minimum wasted effort. But you cannot see the right action if you are looking at a situation with scattered, superficial attention. The right action reveals itself only to the concentrated mind that can pierce through the surface complexity to see the essential pattern underneath, the leverage point where small force produces large results. This is why men of ordinary intelligence so often outperform certified geniuses in practical affairs. They may not have the raw intellectual horsepower, but they have the concentration to see what matters and the discipline to act on it without distraction. The genius sees 1,000 possibilities and cannot choose among them because his scattered attention gives each one equal weight. The focused man of average intelligence sees 3 possibilities, identifies the essential one through penetrating attention, and acts on it with undivided force. 10 years later, the average man is wealthy, and the genius is still in analysis paralysis, his superior intelligence rendered useless by his inferior concentration. This is the bridge that transforms Wattles from inspiration to implementation, and this is why you must master both teachings if you wish to access the full power that lies dormant in your consciousness. Wattles shows you the destination, efficient action in the present moment sustained over time, compounding into inevitable success. Dumont shows you how to build the vehicle that can actually reach that destination, a concentrated mind that stays locked in the present moment and applies its full force to the task at hand. One without the other leaves you incomplete. Wattles without Dumont leaves you inspired but impotent, full of understanding but unable to execute. Dumont, without Wattles, leaves you capable of intense focus, but potentially directing that focus toward inefficient or counterproductive actions. But Wattles plus Dumont creates a complete system, a technology of achievement that works as reliably as any mechanical process because it aligns with the fundamental laws that govern how consciousness interacts with matter. Master concentration through the drill. Apply that concentration to efficient present moment action as Wattles prescribes, and you become unstoppable, not through superhuman effort, but through the compound interest that accrues when concentrated force meets optimal strategy over sustained time. James Allen, in his surgical dissection of thought and character, identifies a phenomenon that destroys more potential than any external obstacle ever could: the energy leak, the constant hemorrhaging of power that occurs when a man allows his consciousness to drain away through undisciplined thinking, scattered attention, and fragmented focus. Allen understood that every person generates a finite amount of creative energy in a given day, and the question is not how much energy you generate, but how much of that energy actually reaches your goals versus how much leaks away into worry, distraction, resentment, fantasy, and the thousand other channels through which undisciplined consciousness dissipates its power. Most men are like pipes riddled with holes. They generate adequate pressure at the source. But by the time that pressure reaches the point of application, 90% of it has leaked away through the cracks, and they wonder why their efforts produce such feeble results, despite feeling like they are working so hard. The sensation of effort is real, but the effort is being expended in leakage rather than application, and this makes all the difference between success and failure, between impact and irrelevance. Dumont takes Allen's observation and provides the precise technology for sealing the leaks, for transforming your consciousness from a fractured pipe spraying energy in all directions into a sealed conduit that delivers 100% of generated force to the designated target. That technology is concentration, systematically developed through rigorous drilling until it becomes as automatic as breathing. Every time your mind wanders from your chosen focus point, that wandering is a leak. Energy that should be flowing toward your goal is instead flowing into the mental equivalent of the ground, soaking into nothing, producing nothing, achieving nothing. And because most people have never trained their concentration, their minds wander hundreds of times per hour, which means they are leaking energy hundreds of times per hour, which means that even if they sit at their desk for 8 hours, they might deliver only 30 minutes of actual concentrated force to their work. The other 7.5 hours were spent in leakage, not in rest, not in strategic thinking, but in the mindless wandering that Allen identified as the silent killer of human potential. The implications are brutal and liberating in equal measure. Brutal, because they force you to confront the fact that your current results are not primarily the result of external circumstances or insufficient opportunities. They are the result of your own undisciplined consciousness hemorrhaging power at a rate that makes meaningful achievement impossible. You do not need more time. You do not need better opportunities. You do not need different circumstances. You need to seal the leaks, to develop the concentration that allows the energy you are already generating to actually reach its intended target instead of dissipating into the mental atmosphere. This is why the truly successful seem to accomplish 10 times as much as everyone else, while working similar or even fewer hours. They are not generating 10 times more energy. They are losing 10 times less. Their concentrated minds deliver 90% of generated force to productive application, while scattered minds deliver 10%, and the results reflect this 10-to-1 ratio in outcomes that compound over time into massive disparities in achievement, wealth, and impact. The liberation comes from recognizing that fixing this problem does not require you to become a different person or acquire capabilities you do not possess. It simply requires you to seal the existing leaks through systematic concentration training. You already generate sufficient creative energy to accomplish extraordinary things. The problem is not production, the problem is distribution. You are like a power plant, generating abundant electricity that is being lost in transmission due to inadequate infrastructure. Dumont's drill is the infrastructure upgrade, the systematic process of sealing every leak point until your mind becomes a perfectly efficient conduit that delivers full power to the point of application. This is not about trying harder, this is about leaking less, and the beautiful truth is that leaking less is entirely within your control, because the leaks are not happening to you. They are happening through you, through your own undisciplined mental habits, and what happens through your own habits can be changed through your own disciplined practice. Consider the mathematics of sealed versus leaking systems over time. Two men start businesses on the same day with identical resources, identical opportunities, and identical amounts of available daily energy. The first man has never trained his concentration. His mind leaks 90% of his energy into distraction, worry, and wandering thoughts, leaving only 10% to flow into productive business building. The second man has completed the drill and developed laser focus. His sealed mind leaks only 10%, delivering 90% of his energy to productive application. After 1 year, the second man has accomplished 9 times as much effective work as the first. After 5 years, the compound advantage becomes so overwhelming that the two businesses exist in completely different categories. One is a struggling enterprise barely keeping its founder employed. The other is a thriving operation generating significant wealth. The difference was never intelligence, never opportunity, never luck. The difference was sealed versus leaking consciousness, concentrated versus diffused energy, and this difference determined everything. Dumont connects this directly to the wealth principle that most people misunderstand completely. The rich get richer, not because they work harder, but because they work tighter. Their minds are sealed systems that deliver full force to wealth-building activities, while the poor man's mind is a fractured system leaking energy into television, gossip, worry, regret, and 1,000 other non-productive channels. Watch a wealthy person work, and you will notice something striking. They are not frantic, not scattered, not multitasking. They are calm, focused, present, applying full attention to whatever task is before them, and when that task is complete, they shift to the next one with the same level of presence. There is no energy leakage, no mental fragmentation, no divided attention. Every unit of force they generate reaches its target, and this efficiency compounds over decades into the seemingly miraculous results that others attribute to privilege or luck, when it is actually just the predictable outcome of sealed consciousness operating over time. The practical steps for sealing your consciousness begin with brutal awareness of how fractured your current state actually is. For one day, carry a small notebook and make a mark every time you notice your mind wandering from your chosen focus point. Do not try to stop the wandering yet, just count it. Most people who do this exercise are shocked to discover they make hundreds of marks, revealing that their consciousness is more leak than pipe, more fracture than seal. This awareness alone begins the transformation, because you cannot fix a problem you do not acknowledge. Once you see the leaks, once you measure their frequency, the absurdity of your current mental operating system becomes undeniable, and you become willing to undertake the rigorous drilling required to seal it. This is not comfortable work. Sealing leaks means denying yourself the habitual escapes that scattered consciousness provides, means sitting with discomfort instead of fleeing into distraction, means holding your focus steady when every fiber of your being wants to look away. But this discomfort is the price of power, and it is a price that Dumont insists you must pay if you wish to join the ranks of those who actually accomplish what they set out to accomplish. The sealed mind operates with an efficiency that seems supernatural to those who have only experienced scattered consciousness. Tasks that used to require 2 hours of distracted effort get completed in 20 minutes of concentrated attention. Problems that seemed unsolvable with scattered focus yield their solutions within days of sustained concentration. Goals that appeared impossibly distant begin to approach rapidly as sealed consciousness delivers full force to their achievement day after day without the energy hemorrhaging that keeps others running in place. This is not magic, and it is not talent. It is simply the mechanical advantage of a sealed system over a leaking one, as predictable and reliable as engineering principles. You are a power-generating system, and right now most of that power is being lost in transmission. The drill seals the transmission lines. Once sealed, the same amount of generated power produces 10 times the results because it is all reaching the target instead of dissipating into space. This is the prevention of leakage that Allen identified as essential, and Dumont provides the methodology to achieve. And this is the transformation that awaits anyone with the discipline to drill. The path to mental mastery begins not in the mind, but in the body. And this is where most seekers of concentration fail before they even begin. They attempt to control consciousness, while their physical nervous system remains a storm of undisciplined impulses, random twitches, and restless energy. Theron Q. Dumont understood what the ancient mystery schools knew millennia before. You cannot control that which you cannot keep still, and if you cannot keep your body motionless, you certainly cannot keep your mind focused. The relationship between physical stillness and mental concentration is not metaphorical. It is mechanical, a direct causal connection where nervous energy that expresses itself through fidgeting, tapping, and shifting is the same energy that, when redirected inward through physical stillness, becomes available as concentrated mental force. This is why the first drill that Dumont prescribes is not mental at all, it is physical. The systematic training of the body to remain absolutely motionless for extended periods, forcing the restless energy that normally leaks through movement to turn inward and become the fuel for sustained attention. The exercise itself is deceptively simple. Sit in a chair, feet flat on the floor, hands resting on your thighs, spine straight, and remain absolutely still for 15 minutes without moving a single muscle. No tapping of fingers, no shifting of weight, no scratching of itches, no adjusting of posture. Complete, total, absolute physical stillness, as if you had been carved from stone. When Dumont prescribes this drill to students, they universally report the same experience. What seems like it should be easy proves almost impossibly difficult, revealing the shocking degree to which their nervous systems have been conditioned for constant motion, constant adjustment, constant release of tension through physical activity. The first attempt rarely lasts more than 2 or 3 minutes before an overwhelming urge to move arises, an itch that must be scratched, a position that must be adjusted, a tension that must be released. But here is the critical insight. These urges are not genuine physiological necessities. They are the protests of a nervous system that has never been disciplined, like the howling of a child who has never been told no, and the transformation begins the moment you start saying no. Each time you resist the urge to move, each time you hold your position despite the uncomfortable sensations that arise, you are performing 2 simultaneous operations of immense value. First, you are training your nervous system to tolerate discomfort without reacting, which is perhaps the single most valuable capacity you can develop, because success in any domain requires sustained action in the presence of discomfort, and most people flee from discomfort so rapidly that they never stay in the game long enough to win. Second, you are reclaiming the energy that normally dissipates through movement and redirecting it inward, where it becomes available as fuel for mental operations. This is not symbolic. This is energetic fact. Every twitch, every fidget, every adjustment is a release of tension, a discharge of built-up energy. And while these releases provide momentary comfort, they also ensure that you never accumulate sufficient energetic pressure to break through to the heightened states of consciousness where real mental power operates. By remaining still, you are essentially building a pressure cooker of consciousness, containing energy that would normally escape until it reaches levels that enable operations impossible for the energy-leaking mind. The progression follows a predictable pattern that Dumont mapped through thousands of students. In the first week, most people cannot remain still for more than 5 minutes without experiencing sensations so intense they feel like torture. Burning itches, cramping muscles, overwhelming restlessness. These sensations are not signs of physical malady. They are signs of a nervous system in rebellion against discipline, and the discipline consists of not reacting. You acknowledge the sensation, you observe it with detached awareness, but you do not move. And here is the remarkable discovery that students make. If you do not react to the uncomfortable sensation, it reaches a peak of intensity and then it passes. The unbearable itch that you were certain would drive you insane if you did not scratch it simply dissolves after 30 or 40 seconds of non-reaction, revealing that it was never unbearable at all. It was simply unfamiliar, and your nervous system labeled the unfamiliar as dangerous in an attempt to force you back into familiar patterns of reaction and release. By the second and third week, assuming you practice daily, the 15 minutes of stillness become achievable, though still not comfortable. Your nervous system is adapting, learning that these sensations do not require reaction, building new patterns of response that allow discomfort to exist without triggering automatic movement. This is when you begin to notice the mental effects. Your mind, during and after these stillness sessions, becomes noticeably calmer, more clear, more capable of sustained focus on whatever task you bring to it. This is not coincidence, and it is not placebo. You have literally rewired your nervous system to contain energy instead of leaking it, and this contained energy is now available for mental operations. The restlessness that used to fragment your attention throughout the day begins to diminish because you have trained the underlying nervous system to tolerate stillness, and a nervous system trained in physical stillness naturally produces mental stillness as its output. By the fourth week and beyond, something even more remarkable emerges. The physical stillness begins to feel not just tolerable, but actually pleasurable, even powerful. You discover that there is an immense sense of strength in the capacity to remain motionless by choice, that this stillness is not weakness or passivity, but concentrated power held in reserve, like a coiled spring or a loaded weapon. The ancient martial artists understood this. Before teaching students to move with lightning speed, they taught them to remain absolutely still for hours, because speed without stillness is merely reaction, but speed emerging from cultivated stillness is conscious action of devastating precision. You are building the same capacity, and this capacity translates directly into every area of life where focused action produces results. The man who can sit perfectly still for 30 minutes while his body screams at him to move is the same man who can hold his business strategy steady while market conditions scream at him to panic, who can maintain his investment thesis while price volatility screams at him to sell, who can sustain his creative vision while critics scream at him to conform. Physical stillness training is character training, will training, concentration training, all compressed into a single elegant exercise that anyone can practice regardless of circumstance. Dumont emphasizes that this exercise must be performed daily without exception because the nervous system, like any biological system, adapts to the demands placed upon it through repeated exposure. Miss a day, and you lose ground. Practice irregularly, and you remain forever in the uncomfortable early stages, never progressing to the point where the exercise begins to yield its real benefits. This is not about accumulating minutes or hours of practice. This is about establishing a daily pattern that progressively reconditions your entire nervous system from a state of chronic agitation to a state of disciplined calm, and this reconditioning takes weeks of consistent practice to solidify. The temptation to skip days will be strong because the exercise is uncomfortable and yields no immediate practical benefit that you can measure. But this is precisely the test. Can you maintain a discipline for its own sake, for the transformation it produces in you, rather than for any external reward it might bring? This capacity for self-imposed discipline regardless of immediate feedback is itself one of the greatest gifts the stillness practice provides, because this capacity, once developed through physical training, automatically transfers to every other domain of effort. The second preliminary drill that Dumont prescribes takes the stillness principle and adds a dimension of sustained effort. Hold a glass of water at arm's length and keep the surface perfectly still without the slightest ripple for as long as possible. This exercise appears simple until you attempt it, at which point you discover that your arm, which you believe to be under your conscious control, is actually a riot of micro-tremors, subtle shakes, and small oscillations that you never noticed because they never mattered until now. The water amplifies every imperfection in your nervous control, turning invisible tremors into visible ripples and those ripples are showing you the exact degree to which your will does not yet control your body. Most people cannot keep the water still for even 30 seconds on their first attempt, and this failure is not a sign of physical weakness. It is a sign that the connection between conscious intention and nervous execution has never been properly trained, and what has not been trained cannot be relied upon when precision matters. The value of this drill extends far beyond the obvious strengthening of arm muscles. What you are actually training is the will's capacity to translate intention into flawless physical execution, to command the body with such precision that even at the microscopic level of muscle fiber activation, every tremor is suppressed, every shake is eliminated, every oscillation is dampened. This is mastery of the body at a level that most people never even attempt, and this mastery produces a psychological shift of immense power. You begin to experience yourself not as a victim of your body's limitations, but as the master of an instrument that responds to your will with increasing precision as training progresses. This shift in self-perception changes everything, because a man who knows he can command his body to perfect stillness, despite its protests, naturally extends that same confident command to his mind, his emotions, and his circumstances. The external control teaches the internal control. The physical discipline enables the mental discipline, and the glass of water becomes a laboratory for forging an unshakable will. As with the stillness exercise, the water glass drill must be practiced daily, and the progression will be slow but inevitable. First week, 30 seconds of stillness before ripples appear. Second week, 1 minute. Third week, 2 minutes. By the 8th or 10th week of consistent practice, you will be able to hold that glass for 5 or even 10 minutes with barely a tremor. And what this represents is not stronger arms, but a fundamentally rewired nervous system that now operates under conscious control, to a degree that was previously impossible for you. And once you possess this level of control, once you have proven to yourself that your will can command your body to eliminate all excess motion and focus all energy on a single sustained action, you will find that focusing your mind becomes almost effortless, because the same neural patterns that enable physical concentration automatically enable mental concentration. You have built the foundation, the rock upon which the laser focus will be constructed. And without this foundation, all attempts to develop concentration will be built on sand. This is why Dumont begins here, with the body, with stillness, with the unglamorous work of controlling the nerves before attempting to control the mind. He understood that consciousness operates through the nervous system, and an undisciplined nervous system makes concentrated consciousness impossible. Master your body first. The mind will follow. The transition from physical stillness to mental concentration requires the systematic elimination of what Theron Q Dumont called energy vampires, the countless habits, patterns, and behaviors that drain your consciousness without providing any corresponding benefit, leaving you exhausted but unaccomplished, busy but unproductive, active but ineffective. These vampires are not dramatic or obvious. They are subtle, socially accepted, even culturally encouraged, which makes them far more dangerous than any vice that society condemns. The vampire does not announce itself with fangs and a cape. It presents itself as just taking a quick break, just checking to see what's happening, just relaxing for a minute, and before you realize what has occurred, an hour has vanished, your mental energy has drained away, and you have received nothing of value in return. Dumont understood that the path to concentration is not just about what you add through practice. It is equally about what you subtract through elimination, and the vampires must be killed without mercy if you wish to preserve the energy required for sustained mental focus. The first vampire is the most obvious and the most deadly: the habitual consumption of fragmentary information through endless scrolling, constant checking, perpetual updates. Every time you unlock your phone to check social media, every time you click on a notification, every time you refresh a feed, you are performing a mental context switch that costs far more energy than the few seconds of elapsed time would suggest. Your brain must disengage from whatever it was processing, load the new context, process the new information, experience the small dopamine hit, then attempt to reload the previous context and this switching process depletes glucose reserves in the prefrontal cortex at an alarming rate. Do this 20 times in an hour, which is low by modern standards, and you have depleted your capacity for sustained attention before lunch even arrives. The insidious nature of this vampire is that it feels like you are not doing anything wrong, because each individual instance seems insignificant, but concentration is death by 1,000 cuts, and each scroll, each check, each refresh is one more cut that you inflict upon your own mental capacity. Dumont's prescription is absolute and non-negotiable. If you are serious about developing laser focus, you must eliminate all fragmentary information consumption during your training period. No social media, no news feeds, no email checking except at designated times, no notifications, no exceptions. This will feel like amputation at first because you have trained your nervous system to expect regular dopamine hits from these sources. And when those hits stop arriving, your system will go into withdrawal, generating anxiety, restlessness, and a nearly overwhelming urge to check just this once. But this urge is not real need. It is addiction making its final stand. And like all addictions, it loses its power once you stop feeding it. After 3 to 4 days of complete abstinence, the urge diminishes significantly. After 2 weeks, it becomes manageable. After 30 days, you will wonder how you ever tolerated the constant interruption, and you will notice that your capacity for sustained focus has increased dramatically simply through the removal of the vampire that was draining it. The second vampire is more subtle but equally devastating: multitasking, the modern delusion that you can process multiple streams of information simultaneously and somehow achieve better results than focusing on one thing at a time. Neuroscience has definitively proven that the human brain cannot actually multitask. It can only switch between tasks rapidly, and each switch carries the same energetic cost as the phone checking mentioned earlier. When you work on a document while simultaneously monitoring email, listening to music with lyrics, and keeping one eye on a chat window, you are not being efficient. You are being catastrophically inefficient, fragmenting your attention so thoroughly that even simple tasks require triple the time they would require if performed with undivided focus. Dumont wrote about this before the age of digital technology, but he understood the principle. The mind that attempts to hold two objects simultaneously holds neither, and the man who splits his attention between multiple tasks completes all of them poorly and none of them well. The practice must be ruthlessly singular, one task at a time from start to finish, with complete exclusion of all other inputs. When you write, you write. No email, no music, no chat, no phone, no ambient monitoring of anything. When you read, you read. No background podcast, no half attention to surroundings, no mental multitasking, where you read words while thinking about unrelated matters. When you converse, you converse. No glancing at your phone, no letting your mind drift to your next appointment, no planning your response while the other person is still talking. This practice of absolute singular focus feels unnatural at first, because you have spent years training the opposite habit, but it is the very essence of concentration, and every moment you spend in this state is building the neural architecture that will eventually make laser focus automatic. The vampire of multitasking dies slowly, throwing tantrums and generating anxiety as you withdraw your energy from its feeding cycle, but its death is necessary for your transformation from diffused lightbulb to cutting laser. The third vampire receives less attention, but may be the most corrosive: aimless conversation, the hours spent in exchanges that provide neither information, connection, nor pleasure, but simply fill time with noise. Dumont observed that undisciplined people use conversation as a form of mental fidgeting, talking simply to discharge nervous energy rather than to achieve any meaningful purpose, and this habit trains the mind to value motion over substance, noise over signal. The concentrated mind, by contrast, speaks purposefully to convey necessary information, to build genuine connection, to solve problems, to provide value, and remains silent otherwise. This does not mean becoming socially awkward or cold. It means becoming precise, making every word count, refusing to participate in the verbal equivalent of scrolling, which is the aimless chatter that fills elevators, break rooms, and dinner tables with forgettable noise that neither speaker will remember 20 minutes later. The practice of conversational discipline has immediate effects on concentration capacity, because speaking is thinking made audible. And if you allow yourself to speak aimlessly, you are training yourself to think aimlessly. Dumont recommends a simple but challenging exercise. For 1 week, speak only when you have something specific to communicate, and observe how much of your habitual conversation evaporates under this constraint. The silence that results is not empty. It is full, rich with presence, with awareness, with the mental energy that used to drain away through verbal leakage now remaining available for focused thought. You will also notice that people begin to take your words more seriously because they learn that when you speak, you mean something. And this increased weight given to your communication is itself a form of power that concentrated individuals possess, while scattered individuals lack. The vampire of aimless chatter feeds on your mental energy and gives you nothing but the temporary illusion of social connection. And once you kill it, you discover that genuine connection increases because your presence becomes more intense, more focused, more substantial. The fourth vampire that Dumont identifies is the habit of doing things while thinking about other things, which is the essence of absent-mindedness and the enemy of presence. When you eat while reading, you train yourself to be unconscious during both activities. When you walk while planning, you are neither fully walking nor fully planning. When you exercise while listening to a podcast, you are half present to both and fully present to neither. The concentrated individual performs each action with full awareness, extracting maximum experience and maximum benefit from minimum activity. This does not mean moving slowly or becoming inefficient. It means becoming present. And presence is the ultimate efficiency, because a present mind gathers more information, makes better decisions, and derives more satisfaction from each moment than a distracted mind could extract from 10 moments. The practice is to select one routine activity each day, showering, commuting, eating, and perform it with full attention, treating it as a meditation, a concentration exercise disguised as daily necessity. The fifth and final vampire that must be killed is the habit of immediately reacting to stimuli, which trains the mind to be controlled by external events rather than by internal decision. Every time something happens and you immediately respond, someone sends a message and you immediately reply. A thought arises and you immediately follow it. An opportunity appears and you immediately pursue it. You are training yourself to be a puppet of circumstance, controlled by whatever stimulus is currently strongest. Dumont teaches the practice of the pause. When a stimulus appears, whether external or internal, you pause for 3 seconds before responding, and in that pause, you reclaim your sovereignty. Those 3 seconds are the difference between reaction and response, between being controlled and being in control, between scattered existence and concentrated life. The vampire of immediate reaction makes you feel busy, makes you feel responsive, makes you feel engaged, but it is actually making you weak, training your mind to jump at every trigger like a trained dog, rather than remaining fixed on your chosen focus like a master. Killing these vampires is not comfortable work, because these habits have become part of your identity, part of how you experience being yourself, and eliminating them creates a void that your psyche will resist with genuine terror. But this void is necessary. It is the space from which concentrated power emerges, the cleared ground on which the laser focus will be built. Every vampire you kill frees energy that was being drained away. Every habit you eliminate removes a leak from the system. And as the leaks seal, you will begin to experience levels of mental clarity and sustained attention that you have not felt since childhood, before these vampires began their feeding. This is the purification that precedes power, the subtraction that enables addition, the killing that creates life. The vampires must die so that the laser can live. The ultimate test of concentrated power is not theory or philosophy. It is practical action in the arena of human interaction, where the quality of your focus becomes visible to others and exerts tangible influence on outcomes. Theron Q. Dumont understood that concentration is not merely a private skill practiced in isolation. It is a force that radiates outward, affecting everyone in your sphere of influence. And nowhere is this more apparent than in the practice he calls the master's gaze, the disciplined use of eye contact and sustained attention during communication. Most people have never been truly looked at. They have been glanced at, scanned, evaluated, but never truly seen with the full force of another person's focused consciousness. And when they encounter the master's gaze for the first time, the effect is immediate and often unsettling. They feel suddenly exposed, as if you can see not just their surface, but their depths, their thoughts, their intentions. And this is not entirely illusion. The concentrated mind, focused through sustained eye contact, does penetrate more deeply than scattered attention, picking up micro-expressions and subtle cues that reveal far more than words alone convey. The practice begins with technical precision. When you speak with someone, you look directly into their eyes, not at their eyes, but into them, maintaining steady contact without staring aggressively, but also without the constant breaking away that signals weakness or discomfort. This is harder than it sounds because sustained eye contact triggers primitive responses in both parties. The person being looked at often feels a subtle pressure to look away, while the person maintaining the gaze must overcome their own discomfort with the intensity of connection that true eye contact creates. Most people break eye contact every few seconds unconsciously, their gaze wandering to surrounding objects or dropping to the floor. And these breaks are not random. They are leaks, points where attention dissipates and power drains away. The master's gaze eliminates these leaks by training yourself to maintain focus on the other person's eyes for the entire duration of the exchange. And what you discover through this practice is that sustained eye contact is concentrated attention made visible, a physical manifestation of the mental discipline you have been developing through the drill. The psychological impact of the master's gaze cannot be overstated because eye contact is processed by the amygdala, the primitive brain region responsible for threat detection and social hierarchy, and sustained eye contact from another person triggers an unconscious calculation. Is this person dominant or submissive, predator or prey, master or follower? The person who can maintain steady eye contact without breaking, without nervous shifting, without the micro-retreats that signal submission, is signaling at the deepest level of human consciousness that they possess internal stability, that they cannot be easily shaken or influenced, that their mind is fixed and their will is strong. This signal is not conscious. The person experiencing your gaze may not be able to articulate why they suddenly feel that you are someone of substance and authority, but they feel it nonetheless, and they respond to it by unconsciously according you more respect, more attention, more credibility than they would grant someone whose eyes constantly wander or whose gaze constantly breaks. This is not manipulation. This is manifestation of internal state. You cannot fake the master's gaze because sustained eye contact without internal stability creates an aggressive stare that people instinctively recoil from, recognizing it as a threat display rather than a display of centered power. The master's gaze emerges naturally from the concentrated mind you have developed through physical stillness, through elimination of vampires, through systematic drilling of attention. When your mind is genuinely concentrated, when you have trained yourself to hold focus without wavering, that internal steadiness expresses itself through your eyes without effort or pretense. People feel the difference between the concentrated gaze of a disciplined mind and the aggressive stare of someone trying to dominate through force, and they respond to the former with respect, while resisting the latter with defensive aggression. This is why the master's gaze cannot be learned as a technique. It must be earned through the prior work of concentration development, and once earned, it becomes a natural expression of your transformed consciousness. The practice must be undertaken systematically, beginning with low-stakes interactions where the cost of failure is minimal. Start with service workers, the barista, the cashier, the receptionist, and practice maintaining steady eye contact throughout the entire exchange. You will immediately notice their response. Most will register surprise because they are accustomed to people who barely look at them, whose eyes are already moving to the next thing before the transaction is complete. Some will become slightly uncomfortable, shifting their own gaze away, because sustained attention from a stranger creates an intimacy that our fragmented culture has trained us to avoid. Others will respond with increased warmth and engagement, unconsciously recognizing that you are someone who is actually present, actually seeing them, actually paying full attention in a world where such attention has become rare and therefore valuable. These initial experiments allow you to calibrate the intensity of your gaze, to find the balance between concentrated attention and aggressive staring, to develop the skill of looking into rather than at. As you become comfortable with service interactions, progress to more challenging contexts, colleagues, friends, family members, people with whom you have ongoing relationships, and where the stakes of getting it wrong are higher. Here you will discover an interesting phenomenon. Many people you think you know well will become uncomfortable with sustained eye contact because your previous pattern of scattered attention allowed them to hide aspects of themselves, and your new concentrated presence removes that comfortable distance. They may ask why you are looking at them so intensely, may accuse you of staring, may unconsciously try to re-establish the previous pattern of fragmented interaction because it was safer for them. This is not your problem. This is their discomfort with genuine presence, with being truly seen, and you should not retreat from your practice simply because others find it unsettling. The master's gaze is not designed to make others comfortable. It is designed to make you powerful, and power always creates discomfort in those who prefer to remain hidden behind the comfortable fog of scattered consciousness. The most advanced application of the master's gaze occurs in situations of conflict or negotiation, where the quality of your attention can shift outcomes dramatically. When someone is lying to you, trying to manipulate you, or attempting to extract concessions through verbal pressure, the master's gaze becomes a weapon that exposes their game without you saying a single word. Liars depend on your distraction. They need you to be thinking about your response, worrying about social awkwardness, processing the emotional implications of what they are saying, anything except simply looking at them with calm, sustained attention while they speak. Because if you do that, if you simply maintain the master's gaze while they deliver their deception, you will see the micro-expressions of stress, the subtle shifts in eye movement, the tiny physical tells that reveal that their words and their internal state are not aligned. And they will feel your perception, will sense that their deception is being penetrated, and this awareness alone often causes them to abandon the deception or become so flustered that the truth emerges despite their intention to conceal it. In negotiation, the master's gaze provides enormous advantage because negotiation is fundamentally a contest of wills, and the person who can maintain concentrated focus while the other person's attention fragments holds structural power regardless of their formal position. When you make an offer or state a position and then hold perfect eye contact while the other party responds, you are non-verbally communicating that you are unmoved, unshakable, that your position is fixed and their arguments are not penetrating your consciousness. This creates subtle psychological pressure because most people unconsciously seek validation through eye contact. When they state their position, they want to see uncertainty or consideration in your eyes, some signal that their words are having an effect. When instead they see unwavering focus, steady attention that is observing them but not being moved by them, it triggers unconscious doubt about the strength of their own position. They begin to wonder if perhaps they are wrong, if perhaps you know something they do not, if perhaps they should be the ones making concessions. This is not a trick. This is the natural result of concentrated consciousness meeting scattered consciousness, of disciplined mind meeting undisciplined mind, and the disciplined always dominates in such encounters, not through force, but through steady presence that the scattered cannot match. The ethical dimension of the master's gaze cannot be ignored, because any tool of power can be misused, and sustained eye contact deployed with malicious intent becomes a form of psychological aggression. Dumont is clear on this point. The master's gaze should be used not to dominate others, but to be fully present with them, to give them the gift of your complete attention in a world where such gifts have become rare. When used this way, the master's gaze becomes an act of respect rather than control, a demonstration that you consider the person before you worthy of your full consciousness rather than the fractional awareness that most people receive. People feel this difference even if they cannot articulate it. They know when they are being dominated versus when they are being honored with genuine presence, and the latter creates loyalty, trust, and connection while the former creates resistance and resentment. The concentrated mind has no need for dominance games because it possesses genuine power. And genuine power does not need to prove itself through aggressive displays. It simply is, radiating through calm presence and unwavering attention. The transformation that occurs as you master the master's gaze extends far beyond improved communication or enhanced influence. It fundamentally alters your relationship with reality, because when you learn to look at people with sustained, concentrated attention, you begin to look at everything this way. Problems that you once glanced at superficially, you now examine with penetrating focus. Opportunities that you once overlooked because your scattered attention was elsewhere, you now notice because your concentrated consciousness is actually present. Experiences that you once sleepwalked through, you now fully inhabit. The master's gaze is not ultimately about eyes at all. It is about the quality of consciousness that expresses itself through eyes, the transformation from scattered awareness to laser focus. And this transformation changes everything, because the world you experience is not independent of the quality of attention you bring to it. The scattered mind lives in a blurry, confusing, overwhelming world where nothing is clear and everything is difficulty. The concentrated mind lives in a sharp, coherent, navigable world where patterns are visible and solutions emerge naturally. Same external reality, radically different experience. The difference is the master's gaze, the discipline of looking without blinking, of seeing without flinching, of maintaining focus without fragmentation. And this discipline, once mastered through interpersonal practice, becomes the lens through which you perceive and navigate every dimension of existence. The wisdom of the great masters converges on a single insight that Western culture has almost entirely forgotten. Success is not the result of doing more things, but of doing fewer things with totality of being, with undivided focus, with the full force of concentrated consciousness brought to bear, until the thing is either completed or revealed to be impossible. Wallace D. Wattles discovered this principle through economic necessity and translated it into the science of getting rich. James Allen discovered it through observation of successful and unsuccessful men and codified it in As a Man Thinketh. Theron Q Dumont discovered it through studying the ancient mystery schools and synthesized it into practical exercises in The Power of Concentration. The language differs, the specific applications vary, but the core insight is identical. The concentrated mind operating through sustained action produces inevitable results, while the scattered mind operating through sporadic effort produces inevitable failure regardless of intelligence, resources, or opportunity. This is not philosophy subject to debate. This is mechanical principle subject only to verification through practice. The convergence becomes visible when you place these teachings side by side and recognize that each master is describing the same elephant from a different angle. Wattles emphasizes efficient action in the present moment, which is impossible without the concentration that Dumont teaches, and both are undermined by the character defects that Allen identifies. Allen emphasizes thought discipline and the elimination of mental energy leaks, which requires the systematic training that Dumont provides and produces the present moment effectiveness that Wattles demands. Dumont emphasizes systematic drilling of attention until it becomes laser-like in its power, which enables the efficient action that Wattles prescribes and eliminates the energy leaks that Allen warns against. They are not separate systems requiring separate study. They are three facets of a single technology, and the person who integrates all three creates a complete system for transforming consciousness from scattered light bulb to cutting laser, from diffused potential to concentrated power. The practical synthesis emerges when you recognize that the drill is not separate from your daily work. It is your daily work performed with a quality of attention that most people never bring to anything. Every task becomes a concentration exercise. Every challenge becomes an opportunity to maintain focus under pressure. Every interaction becomes a test of whether you can keep your mental beam steady or whether external stimuli will fragment your attention. This is why Dumont insists that concentration must be trained not just in special practice sessions, but in the fabric of daily life, woven into every action you take from the moment you wake until the moment you sleep. The man who practices physical stillness for 15 minutes each morning, but spends the rest of his day in scattered distraction, will develop minimal concentration capacity because 15 minutes of discipline cannot override 8 hours of fragmentation. But the man who begins with 15 minutes of stillness and then carries that quality of focused presence into every subsequent task of the day, eating breakfast with full attention, commuting with awareness, working with sustained focus, conversing with complete presence, that man is performing thousands of concentration repetitions daily, and the compound effect of this practice creates transformation at a velocity that seems miraculous to those who do not understand the mechanics. The testimony of those who have integrated this system is unanimous in its core claim. Life becomes simultaneously easier and more powerful. Easier because focused effort produces results far more quickly than scattered effort, reducing the total time required to achieve goals while increasing the quality of outcomes achieved. More powerful because the concentrated mind influences reality in ways that the scattered mind cannot access. Opportunities appear, obstacles dissolve, coincidences accumulate. And while these phenomena can be explained through psychological mechanisms of heightened awareness and decisive action, they are experienced as almost magical by the person undergoing the transformation. This is the secret that initiated individuals throughout history have guarded. Consciousness is causal, attention shapes reality, focus creates force, and these are not metaphors but mechanisms. The concentrated mind does not just perceive a different reality, it generates a different reality through the cumulative impact of thousands of focused actions that the scattered mind never takes because it never maintains attention long enough to see what needs to be done. The great objection that people raise against this system is that it sounds exhausting, that maintaining concentration throughout the day must require superhuman effort and lead to burnout. This objection reveals that the objector has never actually experienced sustained concentration because the opposite is true. Scattered attention is exhausting, concentration is energizing. The scattered mind races from thought to thought, worry to worry, task to task, constantly switching contexts, never resting, burning enormous amounts of glucose and generating overwhelming amounts of stress hormones while producing minimal useful output. By evening, the scattered person is exhausted but has accomplished little, and this combination of exhaustion plus lack of achievement creates the psychological state of burnout. The concentrated mind, by contrast, focuses on one thing, completes it, moves to the next thing, focuses completely, completes it, continues this pattern, and at the end of the day has produced significant results with less subjective sense of effort because focused action flows while scattered action struggles. The energy cost of task switching alone is so enormous that eliminating it through concentration produces a net gain in available energy despite the intensity of focused work. The path forward from this point is clear and simple, though not easy. You must make a decision about which kind of mind you will develop, which kind of life you will live, which kind of results you will produce. The scattered path is well-worn, socially validated, and leads to the mediocrity that most people accept as inevitable. The concentrated path is narrow, countercultural, and leads to the exceptional results that most people envy but assume are unattainable. Both paths are available to you right now in this moment, and your next action will determine which path you take. If you close this transmission and immediately check your phone, scroll social media, or engage in any of the vampire behaviors we have identified, you are choosing the scattered path, and you should accept the results that path produces without complaint or confusion. If you close this transmission and immediately perform 15 minutes of physical stillness, or implement one of the vampire eliminations, or practice the master's gaze in your next interaction, you are choosing the concentrated path, and you should expect the results that path produces, though you should not expect them immediately, because concentration, like all real skills, must be built through consistent practice over time before it yields its full power. The final synthesis of the master's wisdom can be stated simply: you become what you focus on, you achieve what you concentrate upon, and you fail at what you only scatter your attention toward. This is not motivational rhetoric. This is mechanical law as reliable as physics, as predictable as mathematics. The man who concentrates on wealth becomes wealthy. The man who concentrates on health becomes healthy. The man who concentrates on mastery achieves mastery. And the man who concentrates on nothing, whose attention scatters across 1,000 objects without penetrating any of them, becomes nothing, achieves nothing, masters nothing, and spends his life wondering why others with less talent and fewer advantages somehow produce superior results. The answer is concentration. It has always been concentration. The secret is not secret. It is simply difficult, requiring daily discipline that most people are unwilling to maintain, and this difficulty creates the illusion of secrecy because only those who practice discover the power, while the rest remain forever convinced that there must be some other explanation, some hidden advantage, some lucky break that they were denied. There is no hidden advantage. There is only focused attention sustained over time until it cuts through whatever obstacle stands between you and your goal. This is the drill. This is the laser. This is the power. The synthesis of everything that Theron Q Dumont teaches about concentration arrives at a single profound insight that must penetrate your consciousness if you are to understand the true magnitude of what we have been examining. Obstacles are not solid, immovable facts. They are densities, configurations of matter or circumstance that possess a certain structural integrity but remain vulnerable to sustained, concentrated force. The illusion of permanence that obstacles project is simply the result of insufficient pressure applied over insufficient duration. Every wall that has ever stopped you did not stop you because it was unstoppable. It stopped you because you stopped drilling before you broke through, because your attention wavered, because your focus fragmented, because you withdrew the pressure before it could complete its work. This is the truth that transforms everything. If you can maintain concentration on any obstacle for sufficient duration, that obstacle will yield, not because of magic, but because of mechanics, because focused energy sustained over time overcomes any density if applied correctly. Steel yields to the laser, rock yields to the drill, poverty yields to focused effort, ignorance yields to concentrated study, failure yields to sustained attention on success principles. The mathematics of breakthrough are simple and elegant. Every obstacle possesses a certain threshold of resistance, a certain amount of accumulated force required to fracture its structure. And if you apply 99% of the required force and then stop, the obstacle remains intact, as if you had applied nothing. This is why most people fail. They apply significant effort, generate real pressure, get close to breakthrough, and then stop precisely when victory is nearest, because they cannot see how close they are, and they assume that the continuing resistance means they are getting nowhere. The concentrated mind understands that resistance at maximum intensity is not a sign of failure. It is a sign of imminent breakthrough, the final structural defense of an obstacle about to collapse. The scattered mind interprets maximum resistance as evidence that the approach is not working and abandons the effort exactly when continuation would produce results. This is the tragedy of the undisciplined. They do real work, develop real capability, get genuinely close to success, and then fragment their attention at the critical moment, leaving behind half-drilled holes that never quite break through, while the disciplined individual drills just slightly deeper and taps the reservoir. The image of drilling for oil captures this perfectly. You do not find oil by drilling 100 shallow holes. You find oil by drilling one deep hole that keeps going, even when the rock is hardest, even when progress slows to millimeters per hour, even when every signal suggests that nothing is beneath your drill bit. And then, when you least expect it, but exactly when the geology predicted it, the drill breaks through into the reservoir and the oil comes flooding up, validating every hour of drilling that seemed fruitless at the time. Success operates identically. The concentrated effort that seems to be producing no results is actually producing all the results, fracturing the obstacle at depths you cannot see, weakening structures you cannot observe, and the person who maintains focus through this invisible progress period receives all the visible rewards that others attribute to luck or talent when they were actually the inevitable outcome of sustained drilling. You either drill until you hit oil or you don't. There is no third option. No middle ground, no participation trophy for almost making it. The role of concentration in this process is absolute. Concentration is what keeps the drill bit spinning in the same spot day after day, when no feedback suggests that continuation is worthwhile. The scattered mind drills for a few weeks, sees no oil and moves the operation to a different location, then another, leaving behind a landscape pocked with shallow holes and no oil extracted. The concentrated mind picks one location based on the best available information, begins drilling, and maintains pressure regardless of temporary feedback because it understands that breakthrough is not a function of finding the right spot. It is a function of drilling deep enough in any reasonable spot. Most locations have oil at sufficient depth. Most people never reach sufficient depth because they cannot maintain focus long enough to get there. The discipline is not in working harder. It is in working in the same direction over extended time, accumulating force in a single vector rather than dissipating force across multiple vectors. And this accumulation eventually overwhelms whatever resistance the obstacle presents. The liberation in this understanding is total because it removes the last excuse for failure. You cannot claim that your obstacles are too hard if you have not maintained concentrated pressure on them for a sufficient period, and sufficient period is measured not in weeks or months but in years of daily focus if necessary. The oil prospector who gives up after 6 months of drilling has not failed because there is no oil. He has failed because he did not drill long enough, and this failure is entirely within his control to remedy by continuing to drill. Your goals are not impossible. Your obstacles are not insurmountable. Your circumstances are not hopeless. You have simply not yet maintained concentration long enough for the breakthrough to occur, and the moment you understand this, the moment you truly integrate the mechanical nature of sustained focus producing inevitable results, you become dangerous because you can no longer be stopped by anything except your own decision to stop drilling. External obstacles lose their power over you because you understand them for what they are, temporary densities that must eventually yield to sustained pressure, the only question being whether you will provide that pressure for sufficient duration. The great masters of the mind, Wattles, Allen, Dumont, and a dozen others, whose names you will encounter as you continue this study, understood something that modern culture has almost entirely forgotten. Power is not distributed randomly or according to circumstances. Power flows to those who concentrate it, and concentration is a trainable skill available to anyone willing to perform the unglamorous drilling required to develop it. The democracy of concentration is absolute. It does not care about your starting circumstances, your educational credentials, your family background, your genetic inheritance, or any other factor that people use to explain why some succeed and others fail. The only factor that determines whether you develop laser focus is whether you practice the disciplines consistently over time, and this is simultaneously the most empowering and most challenging truth you will ever encounter. Empowering because it means you possess right now the capacity to transform your results through the transformation of your attention. Challenging because it removes every excuse, every justification, every external explanation for why your results are not what you want them to be. The problem is not the world, the problem is your scattered focus, and the solution is not to change the world. The solution is to concentrate your mind. Every excuse you have ever used to explain your limitations collapses under examination when you understand the primacy of concentration. I don't have enough time means I have not concentrated my time on essential actions. I don't have enough resources means I have not concentrated my resources on high leverage opportunities. I don't have enough knowledge means I have not concentrated my attention on acquiring useful knowledge. I don't have enough energy means I have not stopped the leaks that drain my energy into unproductive channels. I'm not talented enough means I have not concentrated practice on skill development for sufficient duration. Every apparent limitation is revealed to be a concentration problem, and this revelation is devastating to the ego but liberating to the will, because concentration problems have concentration solutions, and those solutions are entirely within your control to implement starting immediately. You do not need permission to concentrate. You do not need resources to concentrate. You do not need talent to concentrate. You simply need to begin drilling and maintain the drill until breakthrough occurs. The observation that Dumont makes throughout his work is that the people you admire, the individuals who produce results that seem impossible to you, are not fundamentally different from you in their basic human capacities. They simply concentrate those capacities while you diffuse them. The successful entrepreneur is not 10 times smarter than you. He focuses 10 times more consistently on business-building activities while you scatter your attention across 10 different domains. The wealthy investor does not have 10 times more capital than you started with. She concentrated her limited capital on high-probability opportunities while you diversified yourself into mediocrity. The master craftsman does not possess 10 times more talent. He has concentrated practice on his craft for 10 times more hours than you have concentrated on anything. The pattern is universal and unavoidable. Concentration multiplies capability, diffusion divides it, and the results compound over time into the vast disparities in achievement that people attribute to every cause except the correct one. Stop looking for secret advantages that successful people possess. Start looking at the concentration they maintain and the scattered attention you tolerate. The message of empowerment that flows from this understanding is that you are not helpless, not trapped, not limited by anything except your own undisciplined consciousness, and this means that your transformation can begin immediately without requiring any change in external circumstances. You do not need a better job to start concentrating. Concentration will lead to the better job. You do not need more money to start focusing. Focus will generate the money. You do not need ideal conditions to begin drilling. The drilling will create better conditions. Every external change you seek is downstream from the internal change of scattered to concentrated consciousness, and the internal change can happen right now, in this moment. With your next action, if you choose to make that action a focused one rather than a fragmented one. This is power, not the power to change the world with a snap of your fingers, but the power to change yourself through disciplined practice. And the changed self then changes the world through accumulated, focused action that scattered selves cannot match. The challenge that Dumont issues to every student is simple but severe. Look at your current results in any domain of life: health, wealth, relationships, career, creative output, anything. And those results are showing you the exact degree of concentration you have applied to that domain. If you are dissatisfied with the results, you are dissatisfied with your level of concentration. And complaining about the results while maintaining the same level of scattered attention is the definition of insanity. The results will not change until the concentration changes. And the concentration will not change until you implement the specific practices that transform scattered attention into laser focus. This is not theory awaiting validation. This is observable fact awaiting your acceptance and implementation. The drill works. Physical stillness builds nervous control. Vampire elimination seals energy leaks. The master's gaze trains presence. Sustained focus produces breakthrough. These are not possibilities. These are mechanical certainties that operate in your life whether you believe them or not, and your belief or disbelief changes nothing except whether you consciously harness these principles or unconsciously suffer from ignoring them. The path forward requires no complex strategy, no elaborate planning, no perfect conditions. It requires one decision followed by one action, followed by another action in the same direction, repeated daily with the faith that concentration sustained over time produces inevitable results. You do not need to see the entire path. You do not need to know how the obstacle will be overcome. You do not need certainty of success. You only need to keep the drill spinning in the same spot, one day at a time, 1 hour at a time, one focused action at a time, trusting that the accumulated force of your concentrated attention will eventually break through whatever density currently separates you from your goal. This trust is not faith in the religious sense. It is faith in mechanical principle, in the same way that you trust gravity to pull things downward without requiring proof each time you drop something. Concentrated force sustained over time overcomes resistance. This is law, not hope. And your life is currently providing all the proof you need, because every success you have ever had was the result of some period of focused attention, however brief, while every failure was the result of scattered effort or premature abandonment of focus. The final element of empowerment is the recognition that the time required to develop laser focus is going to pass whether you practice concentration or not. And the only question is whether you will emerge from that time with a transformed consciousness or the same scattered attention you currently possess. 1 year from now, you will have either completed thousands of concentration repetitions and developed the laser that cuts through obstacles, or you will have completed another year of scattered living and remained the light bulb that illuminates nothing of importance. The time will pass, the days will accumulate. The only variable is what you do with the time. And that variable is entirely within your control, because no one can prevent you from concentrating except you, and no one can force you to concentrate except you. This is the burden and the blessing of consciousness. You have the power to direct your own attention, and therefore you have the power to transform your own life, and therefore you have no one to blame if that life remains unchanged, because the tools and the time are available, and the only missing ingredient is your disciplined application of both. The question that remains is not whether concentration works. We have established the mechanical certainty of sustained focus producing breakthrough, but whether you will work, whether you possess the discipline to drill when drilling is uncomfortable, to focus when distraction is easier, to maintain the beam when every part of you wants to look away. This is not a question of ability. We have established that concentration is trainable, but of will, of character, of what you actually value when comfortable words must become uncomfortable actions. Many will close this transmission feeling inspired, understanding the principles, perhaps even intending to begin, and then return to their scattered patterns within 24 hours, because inspiration without discipline is just entertainment, knowledge without practice is just theory, and intention without action is just fantasy. The laser that cuts through steel is not built through inspiration. It is built through drilling. And drilling is not inspirational. It is mechanical, repetitive, often tedious work that must be performed whether you feel motivated or not. The commitment that the drill requires is total but not complicated. 15 minutes of physical stillness, practice every morning without exception, regardless of how you feel, regardless of what else is demanding your attention, regardless of whether you perceive any benefit. Elimination of 1 vampire per week until all major leaks are sealed. Week 1, eliminate social media scrolling. Week 2, eliminate multitasking. Week 3, eliminate aimless conversation, continuing until your consciousness operates as a sealed system. Implementation of the master's gaze in every face-to-face interaction, practicing the sustained eye contact that signals concentrated presence and builds the habit of full attention. Application of singular focus to every task you undertake. When you work, just work. When you eat, just eat. When you converse, just converse. Ending the scattered half-attention that produces exhaustion without accomplishment. These practices are not complex, but they are demanding because they require you to operate differently than the culture operates, to value presence in an age of distraction, to cultivate depth in an era of surface skimming, to build power in a society that has forgotten what real power looks like. The challenge I issue to you now is this. Pick one obstacle that you have been bouncing off for months or years, one goal that seems impossible or at least improbable, one situation that you have told yourself requires luck or resources or circumstances you do not possess. Now commit to drilling on that obstacle with concentrated attention for 90 days, not scattered effort, not occasional focus, but daily sustained concentration applied to the same objective without wavering. 90 days of focused action in the same direction will produce more results than 9 years of scattered effort across multiple directions, and this is testable claim, not motivational rhetoric. Track your practice. Mark each day you complete the stillness drill. Each vampire you eliminate, each focused action you take toward your chosen goal. And watch what happens, not with magical thinking but with scientific observation, as the accumulated force of your concentrated attention begins to fracture the obstacle that previously seemed solid and immovable. The final call to action is simple. If you are ready to transform from light bulb to laser, if you are willing to undertake the drill with the discipline it requires, if you understand that concentration is not a nice-to-have, but the fundamental skill that determines everything else, then write in the comments below, I have laser focus. Not because I need to see it, but because you need to declare it. Because public commitment activates psychological mechanisms that increase follow-through, because the act of writing those words is itself the first concentration exercise. The decision to focus your attention on this commitment rather than scrolling past to the next distraction. And if you cannot bring yourself to write 4 words in a comment section, if that tiny act of focused commitment is already too much effort, then you have your answer about whether you will complete the 90-day drill, and you should accept your current results as permanent because you are not willing to do even the smallest thing differently. The drill bit is offered. The obstacle awaits. The only question is whether you will start drilling or continue bouncing. Choose now, because the time is passing regardless, and the accumulated results of today's choice will become tomorrow's reality. Let the drilling begin.